Well, hello there. This is Vitriolus the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. At the end of last year, I published my new book, 50 plus 2 Chess Quick Wins, Tactical Ideas for Exciting Chess for Beginner Players. Get your copy on Amazon. And the opening section of that book, I cover a number of different tactical ideas, themes, motifs, which underlie the quick win. This is the 8th video in the series where I cover those tactical ideas. And this one's quite a simple one. This one's probably more for beginners, and many people would have sort of recognized that the queen and the knight synergize really well in making a checkmate attack. I'm going to cover this in a little bit more depth so that we sort of think about this in a more deliberate and structured way. So let's think about the queen. So the queen is sort of well recognized as the most powerful piece, most powerful chess piece. It can move both in the cardinal directions and also in the diagonals. So, up, down, left, right, and of course the diagonal. So covering more squares pretty much than every other piece. And importantly, it pretty much covers the move set, incorporates the move set of all the other pieces as well. Now let me just quickly fill all this in. So many squares, but there's one exception, isn't there? And that exception you can see is the knight. So here we've got the queen. The knight has two special features, special powers that the queen actually doesn't have. Now, firstly, of course, it is moveset. It moves in that L-shaped move. And as you can see here, that means that the knight potentially covers all the squares. Imagine the knight was in the center where the queen is here. It actually covers squares the queen cannot access. So that's quite unique because no other chess piece does that. The queen would cover all the pieces, any other piece would be there. Now, when we have an opposing color, it does mean that, for example, if that was a black knight, that knight can attack the queen without being attacked back. So that's the first special power of the knight. The second power is that it can leap over other pieces. Now, put together, what that means is, especially in the opening, the knight has more mobility than pretty much any other piece in the game, because at the beginning, in the opening, there's pretty much all the pieces are still on the board, so the board is quite cluttered. Most of the other pieces are blocked behind our own pawns against the opponent's pawns, while the knight can leap over and rapidly get into the opponent's position. And its attacks are not blocked by things like line of pawns. The knight and queen together then potentially work really well in making a very rapid attack on the opponent because, firstly, the queen can rarely give a checkmate attack on her own, needs support from another piece, and that piece is often best the knight in the opening because of its mobility. Now I'm going to now load up, firstly, a sort of tactical pattern that we're going to look at here. So this is a pattern that's often very, very common. We're looking at this from white's perspective. The knight in this position, the queen in that position as well. And the power here against the opponent's king, black's king has castle kingside, is that the knight here attacks the h7 and the f7 square, and so does the queen. And the thing to see here is that no matter which pawn black moves, the knight maintains vision on those two pawns because it leaps over squares. So it always has an attack on those two squares, regardless of black's response. And pretty much black simply cannot defend both of those pawns simultaneously. So in a potential attack here, if black had no other defenders, this would be forced mate. If they did have some sort of defense, very often we can potentially force, it may still be a mating attack, or we seriously damage Black's defenses around their king, or we can force a trade of material where we get an advantage. So we win material as a matter of an exchange. Sometimes Black may be forced to even trade away their queen for our knight to nerf the attack. And the other thing here is, in this position, we can often get the queen and the knight here quite easily. So the queen starts, of course, on the d1 square, so a single move can bring it to h5. This is the king's knight, and only, the king's knight, only 2 moves would it take to get the knight all the way to that position. So a particular pattern to keep an eye out for. Let's see this in a game, and this game will be from Black's perspective, and we'll see what it ends up looking at. And again, let's keep an eye out on Black's position. Let's keep an eye out on the queen and the king's knight. And remember, the queen wants to get to that square, so the h4, and a knight potentially to the g4 square. And from there, the potential attack on those 2 pawns. So that's the pattern we're looking for. Now, this is a game of the Bush-Gauss Gambit that Black plays. Basically, Black trades away material for rapid development, and we actually get a checkmate in move 8 in this game. So let's have a look. So here we have initially sort of e4, e5, very, very normal, knight f3, bishop out, basically gambiting that pawn, captures, knight out, basically let's trade, keep an eye on the queen and king's knight, captures, and now they develop, and notice no real defenders on the king's side for white. It looks like they want to castle quickly. Now for the next 3 moves, the knight, king's knight, and a queen move into position for the attack. Knight to f6, they short castles. Knight now to g4, they bring out a knight, seem to make sense, but now queen to h4, and the attack is afoot. And more than that, notice that the f pawn is also pinned to the king. And so this is now a really, really powerful attack. White can sort of avoid checkmate by playing something like h3. However, they're going to be losing material. So pretty much they'll probably at least need to trade their rook for a pawn, rook and pawn for a knight potentially. They're in some really, really big trouble. Now in this game, white doesn't see that. Instead, they play queen to that position, looking to defend, maybe also thinking that maybe they had some sort of big attack here as well. But of course, they miss out on that attack on the h-pawn. Queen captures h2, and that is mate. Now, let's have a look at another game which I found, which was actually broadcast on British TV against between Magnus Carlsen and Bill Gates.
And now, well, there he started, you know, the game is on.
Really? Getting a lot of strength there. Oh, that was quick. Oh, that was bad.
Now, Magnus Carlsen plays with the black pieces, and he gets a quick win against billionaire Bill Gates. Let's quickly load up the game. Black pieces. Bill Gates plays e4 first, Magnus responds with the Nymphswitch defense. Now let's keep an eye out on that black queen and that king's knight. Knight f3, very normal, plays now a very, very combative d5. Bill Gates decides they won't take, plays a bishop first, second knight out, now captures in the center, queen now captures, queen is now out in the center of the board. Other knight makes sense, queen to h5, potentially looking at the h2 pawn, short castles, a bishop out, and basically think about what Magnus is trying to do, getting the queen and the knight ready to attack the h2 and the f2 squares. So trying to attack, well, interesting. Knight forward, captures, knight and queen are now in position. Bill Gates doesn't see the trap, captures that ostensibly hanging knight, and of course, queen h2, mate. Same pattern, knight plus queen, attack, checkmate. Now, this pattern occurs in many, many potential quick wins. There's always a potential possibility for this tactic to be enacted. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not, but if you're not sensitized to it, you will never see the possibility when it arises. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and try to use this tactic in your own games.